Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome back, you all. We are here broadcasting results with Rouse. That's right, we are here in season three. But yet, you all, we are starting off in the month of March. And what better way to honor Women's Month? And as we start off this month, I found it to be very profound that we think about our women that are paving ways in our communities, yet right here in Williamsburg County. And so tonight I have someone that has been doing what I call grassroots since as long as I've known her. From
Mhm.
Mars College back in the day to this present moment, she has been reminding us of our history. And so tonight, this broadcast welcome yet recognize Miss Cassandra Rush Williams, that is Rush. And so we thank you, Miss Rush, for your hard work that you've been doing over the years, and we just thank you for what you've continuing to do. But before we just dive into some different components here, obviously I know who you is, and so for the viewers that is out there, before we really get started, we are officially live, and I ask that you all reshare this broadcast and tag her in it. Reshare, tag her in it, and let her know that you are here, taking a seat at the table right along with her to hear more about our history here in Williamsburg County, but what got her to this place. And so again, we're live. Reshare this live right here on Turquoise Rouse's page and tag Miss Cassandra Williams Rush to it. Uh, Again, welcome yet good evening, Miss Rush. How are you?
Good evening. How are you?
All is well, all is well. And I thank you for just being willing. You're definitely a trailblazer in our community, yet in Williamsburg County. And again, I just want to take a moment just to recognize you for Women's History Month, for all of the work that you have done and yet continuing to do. And so, for the viewers that don't know who Cassandra Rush is, can you please just give us a brief background of yourself?
Wow. Okay. I When I do my biography, I used to say I was born, reared, and educated here in Williamsburg County. In fact, I was born in the Neesmith Corner section of Williamsburg County and grew up there from birth until about third grade when my family moved to King Street. So when I started school, I started at Brown School, which was next door to Friendship United Methodist Church, and attended Friendship all my life. And in fact, I'm still I've rejoined Friendship or reenacted my membership there.
Mhm.
So I think we moved to Kingston about third grade, and I continued to go to Battery Park. I went to Brown for first grade, Battery Park for second through fifth grade, and Tomlinson from sixth through 12th grade. Um, so that's, my family is from here, my roots are here. And I tell people I am traceably related to everybody in Williamsburg County. I feel as though all of you are my cousins. I mean, I really sincerely do. I remember several years ago, my sister said, "Well, why are you saying that?" I said, "Because they are. Everybody's my cousin." So know that I feel that close to you, and I care just that much for you. Now, please excuse if you see my white hands because I was painting and just hadn't been able to get it off. So don't let that be a distraction at all this evening, please. Um, like I said, I love Williamsburg County. As a child, I was, trying to be as active in as many things as possible. And in high school, probably I know at least the 11th and 12th grade, if not the 10th grade, I was active in the junior division of the Voters League, and that's another entire story that hopefully I'll get a chance to tell here at the end. I'm usually so busy telling everybody else's story until I usually fail to tell my own.
Yes, ma'am.
That's my connection. My grandparents are from here. My grandmother died in 1988 at 106 years old in Neesmith. Um, or her family's from here. So I think when the slave ship landed in Charleston, my people seemingly migrated up to Williamsburg County. And as you know, Williamsburg County is a predominantly black county with 67% blacks, and I think in the town it's about 70% African Americans.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you. Which was going to lead me to kind of what your ties was, but thank you for kind of telling us your connections. I appreciate that. And
Mhm.
so, you all, if you're familiar, I remember growing up, coming down a particular road, and for some of you all, you remember it as Warriors Dry Cleaners.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Many
Mhm.
years. But as of today, you all, as of today, this young lady has taken that structured building to pay homage to what I call our history. Our history.
Mhm.
So I want to ask you, Miss Rush, like just knowing you again for many years, what what kind of inspired you to get into or get involved, I should say,
Mhm.
into the African American Museum because that's what it is. So tell it and why Williamsburg County?
Well, like I said, I grew up here. I grew up in what was called the Jim Crow era. I grew up, I felt, on the, if you're going north, on the right side of the railroad tracks, and I grew up the tracks on Thorn Avenue. Today, I think that's considered the ghetto, and I'm not sure what it was called then, except it was part of the black neighborhood. So it was because my church people, my pastors, the community, especially my teachers, were all supportive of my efforts, and I think with that amount of encouragement, I accomplished certain things in high school. For example, Miss Parsley, my science teacher, chemistry, physics teacher at the time, inspired me to be involved in a science fair. So they had school science fairs, they had county science fairs, and then on to the state science fair. Well, for at least a couple of years straight, I was the winner of the county science fair, and then I went to the county science fair and won that. And in my senior year, me and what's her name out of Spartanburg, Kay. Oh, I forgot their last name. Her dad was a funeral home owner up there, but she and I were the two finalists from the state science fair at SC College at the time, and
Mhm.
we went to the International Science Fair in Dallas, Texas. So
Okay.
all of that inspiration, plus Miss Parsley sent my and Kenneth names in, and helped us with applications to participate in a science institute. That was the summer of 1965. Yes, I'm 100 years old. The summer of 1965 at Morgan State. I was accepted, and if I were not able to go, he was going to be the alternate. But I
Okay.
was able to go, so that was very inspiring for me. And in fact, that was my incentive to register and attend Morgan. So after I graduated from high school, and I did graduate from high school in May of 1966 as valedictorian. So by that year, and at 16 years old, but I turned 17 that summer. So by the time I got to Morgan, I was 17 years old as an entering freshman majoring in chemistry. So it was my inspiration like that, and the church, and along with my feeling that after they were so encouraging and supportive, that I always wanted to come back to give back. I always wanted to come back to give back, along with the fact that I was active in the Voters League. I was active in the youth division of the Voters League, and with part of that, there was the division of the Voters League with Virgil and Johnny Demery and Dr. Stevenson and the two Lawrences, I think Mr. Dozier, and some others. So the Voters League, met on a monthly basis. The junior division also met on a monthly basis, and the Voters League decided that we needed to integrate the library downtown King Street, which is now the Historical Society, diagonally across, of course, from the Rush Museum. So they organized that effort, and we were to meet at a certain location downtown King Street, and I think there were at least two or three gentlemen that were there to escort us into the library to officially integrate the Williamsburg County Libraries. I'm not sure this was my junior year or my senior year, so it was either 1965 and 1966 that the Williamsburg County Library got officially integrated, but it was never publicized.
Hmm.
So we got there that day at the designated spot to go into. No other youth showed up but me. I was the only youth that showed up. I think it was fair that everybody else, because all kinds of things were going on in Alabama and Mississippi and Louisiana, all the other southern states. So I think out of fear, no one else showed up. But I showed up, got to the foot of the steps, and I turned around and looked at the BC Moore store that was directly in front, next door to me now, but directly in front of the Historical Society. That store window was full of white faces. I thought, 16-year-old or 15 or 16-year-old, I'm thinking, well, my goodness, why are all these white people here today staring at us going into the library? And then it dawned on me, whoa. somebody who goes to our meeting goes back and tells them everything that we're doing, because otherwise they would not have known to be in the front of the store that day
Mm,
looking to see, what was going to happen as a result of our efforts to integrate the library. So after that, so I went in, we went in, but only youth. So I checked out a book and brought it back in 2 weeks. And I'm not sure if I ever went back to check out another book or not, but supposedly in their records, I guess that was the official integration of the Williamsburg County Library.
mhm,
A little while after that, I thought, well, so I mentioned to them, I'd be interested in going and apply for a job at Rose's as a sales girl. And they said, okay, well, we'll support you in that effort. Go ahead and do so. So I did go to Rose's Five and Dime, and this had to have been in 65. I went in Rose's Five and Dime and applied for a sales girl job. Mr. Fuller was the manager, very nice white man. And he hired me. But so that I wouldn't be alone and isolated in the store, he also hired Eliza Coswell, and I think her mother worked, in the house there for him. So
mhm,
Eliza and me were, the two black sales girls working. Well, of course, we weren't running the register. We never got that privilege. We were just folding the clothes in the aisles on the shelving and everything, trying to keep everything nice and neat. And I think my pay, if I remember correctly, was 65 cents an hour. And
mm,
I remember working there to make enough money to buy that little folding wooden clothes dryer that you dry, and that's what I took to college with me to dry my clothes on when I would hand wash them there in the dorm. And then there was a third situation, and this wiped away from my mind. I think my mother remembered it, and then Harriet Jean Fulton, who lived directly in front of us up the track, told a girlfriend of mine who told me. So that's now why I can tell the story, because I didn't remember these details, but she evidently did. You know how King Street on Saturdays we would run up and down, walk up and down the street. I mean, King Street was the mecca of South Carolina. It was the place to be on a Saturday afternoon after we worked in the cotton fields or tobacco fields all week or went to school all week. We would meet downtown on Saturday and walk that one block from the railroad track or Hampton Avenue all the way up to Academy, and seems like we'd walk 10 miles to me. I mean, it was just, the largest, biggest, magnificent place. So a group of us were walking up the street that day, going towards Silverman's, because that's mainly the side of the street that most people walked on. And the group said, "Well, let's go into Drucker's. Let's go into Drucker's and integrate and sit at the counter." So
mm.
I said, "Okay." So they opened the door and I went in, sat at the counter, and looked back. Nobody followed me in there.
Oh, wow.
The counter by myself. So Mr. Drucker came and got me by the shoulder and escorted me out the door. So those are my three, and because of that, and like my valedictorian speech was on, not being treated as a second class citizen or trying to move above that status to being classified as a full citizen. And then in the 70s, when I was working at Bell as an engineer, I started collecting antique dolls. So, after that, well, at first, well, yeah, I started then, but in the when did I start? In the 1990, yeah, that's when I established a business called Art and Expressions, and that's where I first started with African American art. That was when African American art was first being introduced. Some was on the Cosby Show. Shows on TV would have it. So it was from there that I wanted to add some black art to my house that I had just recently bought in Columbia. So ran into Brenda Joy Smith in I ran to Brenda Joy Smith in Dallas, Texas at the Delta convention, and there's an artist out of, I forgot where she's from then, Tennessee. Really, some of her work was on the Cosby Show, and
Okay.
I talked with her then about purchasing some. I saw some pieces there I wanted. I contacted her later, and I wanted to purchase. She said, "Okay, that'll be whatever, a certain price."
Mm.
And she asked something else. So, you got your business license? I said no. Then she doubled the price on me. I thought, oh, so I quickly went and got my business license. So that's how I got my business started, the Art and Expressions business, which opened the door for me to collect, to go to shows, and I can
Right.
use my business license to make purchases wholesale. And a lot of times I would buy things wholesale. I'd always buy two, one to sell, one to keep,
Mm,
which meant that one of the items my item was basically free.
mm,
So in about 2000, oh, I guess just before 2000, about 2008 or so, I realized my house was, kind of bursting at the seams in Columbia. Had a 3,000 square foot house, and I thought, well, I need to. Now is the time. I need to put forth that effort to go back and give back. I had, at the time I was working at Allen University, so I left there. Came to King Street. I said a prayer. There were 8 steps in that prayer. I said, Lord, if you could make, and I wish I could remember all the details. A, B, C, D, E, F, I think, and G happened. I'll be able to open that museum in King Street.
Mm,
So I came to King Street. I rode up and down every street trying to find and get a feel for just the right place. And after I rode up and down every street, I got out and walked up and down the streets, just trying to get a feel. And that's when I noticed the Royal Cleaners building was vacant. So I, walked around, looked at it, and thought, this would be an excellent location for a museum. So I called the realtor, and she gave me a tour. And she said they're asking 78,000 for the building. I thought, oh my goodness, I can't afford that. After once I calculated the payments and everything, I said I just wouldn't be able to do that. So I kept calling her and asking her if by chance there might have been any other interest in it, and she says no, not really. Then she called me about a month or so later. Said, "Oh, they're putting it up for auction." I said, "What?" So I went to the auction, and that's how I acquired it. And the funds I had allocated for that was out of one of my retirement fund. And
mm.
the auction stopped at to the dollar on the amount that I had in that account to purchase that building. So, and that's why I knew God was with me the entire way. So, everything ran smoothly, getting creative. Didn't have any formal art museum training. It's just that whenever I would go to a different city, the first place I'd look for is the African American Museum to see if they had one. If they didn't, then I would go to any museum. So we did that repeatedly. And then in 2017, I went to my first AAAM conference. That's the Association of African American Museum Conference. And that was in Jackson, Mississippi. That was
Right.
that was a true epiphany. I thought, "Oh my God, what have I got myself into? This is huge. All the stuff that needs to be done, all the things I need to be doing, and just on and on." So I went ahead and then it was about 18, 19. Also, I realized my funds were running low. And then I remembered in that extensive prayer I made, I forgot to ask for the money. So I was basically operating, out of pocket
Mm,
and from the events and, a little bit of sales and stuff, but was able to make it. And because I felt as though I was providing a true service to the community.
mm,
So I applied for my 501(c)(3), got it approved in February of 2019, and was able to get some grant funding beginning in 2020. And I tell people I regret that COVID happened because of the extensiveness of it, the death tolls, the illnesses, the consequences, the economy. I just really regret that it happened. But if it were not for COVID, I would be out of business.
mm.
During COVID, organizations of philanthropists, foundations were eager, and it was after the George Floyd situation too, when they realized the disparities that were going on in America. So I remember getting a call from Tito's Liquor. I'd never heard of Tito's Vodka. I'm sorry, Tito's Vodka. I'd never heard of Tito's Vodka before in my life, and they'd call me, and he mentioned that they had given some funds, I think, to the fire department or the police department or something, and they offered me $2,500. So
Mm,
they're providing funds to pay your rent, pay your basic utilities because they know everybody was closed. And then the other, I mean, funders were just coming out of the woodwork, and you didn't have to do a budget or explain a whole, send a whole bunch of financial documentation. None of that. They just asked, well, what do you do? How much do you need, kind of thing, even though they already probably had an established amount. But that was definitely an opportunity, that kept me going. And I'm at a point now, you know, God has been good because what really helped is that we got some additional funding. We received the Communities for Immunity $100,000 grant.
oh,
Um,
great.
yeah, that was back during the COVID era, of course. In fact, they first had a $10,000 grant called Phase One. So we got involved in that. And the purpose of the grant was to increase vaccine confidence in the African American community. Then they announced they were coming out with a Phase Two. And with the Phase Two is going to be up to $100,000, which is going to be considered the moonshot grant. But there would be a lot of, grant amounts in between. So we got really bold and applied for the $100,000 moonshot grant and received it. And they only gave us 3 months to spend $100,000. I thought, oh my goodness. So now, if I didn't have any specifications, of course, I could have spent that easily at a jewelry store. But I had, according to what we did, and of course, I had to keep real good receipts and real good documentation of that amount. And luckily, they extended it to 4 months, and I still couldn't spend quite the whole 100,000. I think we spent probably about 97, 98,000. We tried our best.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So I have to. I was sitting here writing some notes because I didn't want to miss, and you said a lot in just that very question in regards to what inspired you to get involved to the museum. And I
Mm-hmm.
must say, Miss Rush, at 15, 16, you were doing it just to say that you were young,
Mm-hmm.
female, black in such environment that you were in. When we talk about
Mm-hmm.
still having that racial profile type thing
Oh, yeah.
going in your era, but you were bold. Not that
Yeah.
you're still bold till today, but just as a little girl, you were definitely
Mm-hmm.
bold. So when I say what inspired you, I'm sitting here looking or listening and listening to like this lady is giving motivation. So I just want to pause for a minute. If you all are just tuning in, again, we are here broadcasting results with Rouse with Miss Cassandra Rush. That is, some of you all know her as Williams, but she is Miss Cassandra Williams Rush. I'd say, and she was kind of giving us. Proposed a question to her, what inspired her to get involved in regards to the African American Museum, but yet here in Williamsburg County, because again, just me knowing her for many years, she's definitely been
Mm-hmm.
one that traveled, and her history is her thing. She mentioned about being a very, very smart young lady, but even till today, she still holds that to be true, still as a young lady, I should say, right? But I'm talking 15, 16. She's walking into places um, boldly turning back, realizing her other peers are not coming with her. But
Mm-hmm.
the one thing I take from that, and again, you all, this is Women's History Month, and I love everybody that's tuning in. But to our women, I want us to take what she's sharing in regards to being 15, 16, walking into an establishment which they feel like, you know what, we want to go in and have just as much rights like anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I first commend her for her boldness as a woman. Okay. Secondly, as in going in there, number two, her courage. Because regardless of what she was going in it to face, she had the courage enough to go in there. Now, although she got pulled on the sleeves to be walking back out, number
Mm-hmm.
three, I appreciate her confidence. So we talk about boldness, we talk about confidence, we just talk about us as women. Women,
Mm-hmm.
we gotta recognize us. And
Mm-hmm.
so just sitting here, I'm taking notes and I'm like, I asked her what inspired her. She's just giving motivation. Like she 15, 16. But I say that even being as the age is very well young teenager, but even us at our ages that some of us are currently at, whether that's our 20s, 30s, 40s and up, yet we talk about women history. And I know sometimes when we hear about women history, we're thinking naturally. And I'm not saying that up there is not to not be recognized, but I want us to remember that yet right here in our communities, we have individuals, women that is making just as much or paving the way, I should say, just as well as anybody else. So I want us to continue as she was sitting there talking, continue to be bold,
Mm-hmm.
continue to have that courage and also that confidence. Like, no matter what she was going in to face at 15, 16, she was willing to go in there. When she recognized her peers wasn't coming in with her, she was already in there, although she was being escorted back out. But she had enough courage. That just sticking with me. But I also want to go back to something you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
15, 16, you recognize that you were going to possibly look at a job. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you said something about roses. But
Mm-hmm.
if I'm not mistaken, you said 65 cents.
Yeah. I was
65.
when I was debating whether it was 55 or 65, but I decided to give it the benefit of the doubt and say 65, but it might have been 55, but yeah, at least 60, yeah, 50, 55, 65 cents. Yep.
So I'm also saying that because,
Wow.
even till today, when we think of the dollar amounts for what it was during that time to now, you're able to value, especially someone coming from your era, we're able to kind of value, yet hear the history on where you were to where you are now. So, for me, for
Mhm,
you, you're kind of like my teacher, a mentor in the background. You continue to push and say these things, and just to hear you talk about that. But here's another point I want us to recognize as women. This young lady said, and make sure I'm getting the story slightly correct. You mentioned you realize, hey, in walking around, where do I want to open this museum, right? So
mhm,
you
mhm,
drove around, you walked around, and boom, here's goes the cleaners. But you realize the
mhm,
cost, right? And in most people's minds, like, where am I going to get that from? You
mhm,
said it. You said a prayer. Now you might have didn't been
mhm.
all the way accurate with your prayer because you said you missed one point out, but that's not where I want to go with it.
Okay.
When I think again about women, you all, here's history. Also see women that has been paving the way. Is something I see that really take their community service, their passion for what they love, selfless. I ain't say selfish,
Mhm,
selfless. Now, this, she said it. She took her retirement of a building that was being auctioned to do something that she was passionate. This nothing had nothing to do with her individually. It was something that she was passionate about, but all of what she did was to give back to her
yes.
community. And I realize sometimes in Women's History Month, we don't recognize the significance that some of us take behind
Mhm,
closed doors. We may never know. We look at the outer like, oh, they ain't got to do that. They doing too much. And I wouldn't do that if it was them. But you got to have a heart for some of this stuff.
mhm,
You got to have a heart. If I don't say nothing, you got to have a
mhm.
heart and you got to
And a
be
passion.
passionate and you got to love what you do, regardless if
Mhm,
us as some women don't agree with it and or
mhm,
others. Because
mhm,
sometimes we're going to get it from both ends. But if you have a heart,
mhm,
yet a passion, you're going to do it regardless of what the side. I always say you either in the game or you're on the sideline. So I want to definitely say thank you for seeing it fit to be in the game for Williamsburg County and yet seeing fit to want us to recognize our history. Our
mhm,
history. Because sometimes we don't learn, we don't know, and then it'd be years down the road when we think about who do we connect with? Who do we
mhm,
continue to tell our story? So I appreciate you being willing to tell a story for Williamsburg County. So again, if you all are just tuning in, and for you all that may watch this later, Cassandra Williams Rush has put it on the line for us for $17,000. A building was being sold for, right? But
No,
going
it
to
was a
auction.
little bit more than that.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I'm going off the number that she put out. But through an auction, let's say it that way, through an auction, she
Mhm,
was able to purchase this building. Not for her.
mhm,
The building was purchased for us to be able to tell our story.
mhm,
Our story. Keep pin that. Because that's just, but even in that time, we look at the purchase of the building and want to go back to your prayer.
mhm.
Because God has truly been good in such little time, right?
Oh yeah.
So we got the building, and here goes these funds just rolling in. Now this is not the end of it, because it's going to continue to unfold for the museum
Prayerfully, I
itself.
need it.
But let's just look at the timing of the museum and how God has truly blessed you in providing individuals or funding to just be able to pour into it. And look at, you said something earlier about the grant, not knowing you took the risk, right? Applying
Mhm,
for $100,000 grant, and look what you did.
mhm,
You got it,
mhm,
y'all. Selfless. I can't, and I don't know. I'm just there with it. Which leads me to my kind of next question. I know you talked about the idea for the museum and
mhm,
kind of what role they played for you in bringing it to light. And so I want to kind of go into so people recognize the museum in a whole. And again, please be reminded to reshare this live and tag Miss Rush into it. But if you, when we talk about the museum, I mean, it has to be a reason why you want to do it. And you kind of shared a little bit about that. But I want to talk about the mission, right? Yet the impact that the museum has had since being in Williamsburg County. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, the mission was to research, document, um, edify, and share the rich history of the people, places, and events in Williamsburg County. And of course, to also make sure we include diversity for the children. I really wanted to make sure that the young people, in particular, the school children, the communities, um, all the schools would be actively involved in visiting the museum to see and visit the exhibitions and learn more about the rich African American history we have here in Williamsburg County.
Hmm.
So I'm going to take this opportunity this is what I used to talk about. I seldom tell that story I told earlier about my civil rights experiences. And because I'm always so busy, like I went to that presentation on Saturday. So I came out saying, do you know that we have 4 HBCU presidents that were born, reared, and educated here in Williamsburg County? Yep.
Right here.
Yes, there are 5. I'm sorry, someone told me the other day there are at least 6 HBCU presidents that have direct ties to Williamsburg County. That means that either their spouse or their family members are here. So a lot of the history comes back to Williamsburg County. Additionally, what we did at the Rush Museum event this past Thursday, our Black History Month event, we were recognizing the equalization schools that once existed in Williamsburg County, because I'm learning that, and I'm realizing that our people today just aren't aware of, I mean, of course, a lot of our history, but certainly not the history of the schools. I asked someone recently about Tomlinson, my high school, and they said, "No, I've never heard of Tomlinson." Well, Tomlinson, I used to say, was the mother school of the county, and my
Mm.
research has documented that. Tomlinson was started in 1866, the year after slavery ended. School
Eight-
of the county. Oops. 1866, and the superintendent was Reuben Tomlinson, because at that time the school was named the King Street Graded and High School. So I'm not sure exactly when whoever decided to change the name to Tomlinson. So that's how we got the name. Tomlinson was a Rosenwald school. If you're not familiar with Rosenwald schools, please look that up. If not, I can give you a brief history on that. Tomlinson was an equalization school. In fact, going back to Rosenwald, there were 10 Rosenwald schools in Williamsburg County. Tomlinson, and all of them were built between 1920 to 1930, during the time of probably many of your great grandparents, grandparents. So Tomlinson was built, all of the Rosenwald schools in Williamsburg County were built between 1920 to 1930. I think Tomlinson was 1923. It was the 2-story red brick building. It was first built it was proposed to be built as a board building, but the Black citizens really wanted to break it in because I guess they had heard of the Ox Swamp School that burned out in the rural area. And of course, we can be assured of why that happened. But that Rosenwald School program was started by Julius Rosenwald, who is the CEO and president of Sears and Roebuck. Some of you never heard of it,
Mm.
and Booker T. Washington. So the two of them formed a partnership, and this was in 1912. But unfortunately, in 1915, Booker T. Washington died, but Julius Rosenwald continued the efforts of the schools, built about over 5,000 throughout the Southeast, and even continued to serve on the board of Tuskegee University until his death in the 1930s.
Mm.
The equalization schools, Tomlinson was one, Blakely, Williamsburg County Training, Chavis, Cade, St. Mark. Am I missing any? Cade, St. Mark, Battery Park, Chavis. They were all what was called equalization schools, and those schools do not exist anymore. And something else. Oh, and then Tomlinson, as you know, was the site of Dr. King's May 8th, 1966 speech, Let Us March on Ballot Boxes. Well, of course,
Yes.
I was active in the audience, and it's hard to find people nowadays who may have been, present at that time.
Mm.
I mean, we just have such rich history, and that's what meet somebody, I'm eager to tell our story, and that's it. I had a tour group that came to the museum this summer, and this lady, they got off it was a church bus out of Columbus. She got off the bus and says, "Oh my goodness, I was just reading all this history here. Why, why don't we know about it already? Why you're not like Clarendon County?" And I said, "That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get this history out there and share it." So, I depend on all of you all to help share that information. Let's boast on Williamsburg County and the accomplishments that we have made, because I mean, our people have just done some phenomenal things.
Definitely so. And so in hearing you, I keep going back. And one point I don't want to kind of miss, and I'm sitting here saying, look at God, because I'm just looking at history of where we were. And I say we because great grandparents, they were the forefronters for myself as well as someone like yourself. So we just look at God, like where he
Oh
brought
yeah.
us from, right? And then
Mhm,
I go back to your story when you talked about the grant and having $100,000, but recognizing, look at God again, you had it and couldn't even get it all the way to the T. But that
mhm,
just shows you when we tend to be steadfast,
mhm,
listen to the voice, and do our best to follow. We see the significance of how God moves and will continue to move, because I find this to be very, very fruitful for
mhm,
our histories. And when I'm sitting here thinking, you're talking about all of the schools, and obviously with a lot of them not being open
mhm,
now, and some of them just sitting,
mhm,
some of them we can't even do nothing with, but we look at that was
mhm,
our history. And so I want to kind of ask you a question, like how important is it, to kind of reserve our history? And I'm saying this, asking you this, but to share it so our viewers can understand our history, like how important it is to recognize our history, but to continue to share it. Because here's another thing, our history, we don't hear that in schools.
right, they've cut everything out, yeah,
So we go to
everything.
schools for a number of years. And again, it's moments like these when we're able to hear about
Mhm,
our rich history, but it'll be long before then. And I feel like it's important for us to continue to find a way to make sure that our history stay at the forefront, because a
mhm,
lot of people before us, you and I both, have fought. You was 15, 16, being very bold
mhm,
during that time. So you've made history. And yet today you are continuing to make history by allowing us to remember our history. So either way, on both ends, you're continuing to pave the way. But I have to ask, when we're again look at the number of schools that we had in Williamsburg County itself, right? Look
mhm,
at all of the presidents, yet maybe some of them that still had ties to Williamsburg County,
mhm,
still in education,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
See what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like, how important is that to you, to tell our viewers, yet our community members, our leaders, our educators, that we gotta make sure our history is being told one way or the other?
Well, as you said, and as it is you're aware, they have taken the books out of the library. They refuse to teach our history in the schools. So I feel as though I may have been ahead of the game in establishing the museum to make this information available to our children and our community. So it is up to us, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, to ensure that this information is shared. And my thing I like to say too, if it's not documented, it never happened. So that's why over the past, I guess, about 15 years, I have researched and documented. And the way that I've documented is I've printed an article weekly in King Street's The Newspaper during Black History Month. So that's my initial first step in documenting. And my second step is to take all those articles up, so I need updating now, and assemble them into a book that is the history of Williamsburg County African Americans. Now, I recently completed. Did I send you a copy, Turquoise, yet? I recently completed an African American tour guide for King
Yes,
Street. I sent you the copy for
yes,
King
ma'am.
Street. Yeah, for King Street in Williamsburg County. Now, a lot of the articles that I've printed does not really include any of the information that's in the tour guide. For example, as my way of trying to document the history of African Americans in Williamsburg County, and mainly during the Jim Crow era, I'm not going to probably write an article on somebody that was, that's current day. And the reason I do that is because their information is so readily available until it's, and there's Facebook, there's all these and their information is out there. Whoever it is, their information is out there. But I'm trying to recognize and acknowledge those people during the Jim Crow era when we were considered second class citizens who did not get acknowledged or recognized at all for their achievements and their contributions. So that has been, one of my main goals. And back to the schools. So I did some research. My first area of research on the schools was the Roosevelt schools.
Mhm.
And then I started researching the equalization schools. And in fact, I got a $10,000 grant from the Gaylord Donnelly Foundation to research the early schools of Williamsburg County. And my research, believe it or not, has revealed that there are about 70 schools that were started throughout the rural Williamsburg County in the various churches and communities. Now, here's my hypothesis. I could be wrong, but I'm thinking that once the county, once everybody found out that the King Street children had a school, you think they're going to be outdone in Neesmith and Salters and Lane and the other areas of Donnelly community and other areas? They started schools too because they wanted their kids to be educated. Now,
Right.
I'm trying to determine whether there could be a direct correlation with our number of HBCU presidents and the importance and significance that education played in our communities in our history years ago. So I'm just wondering if that would have anything to do with that. But yeah, so altogether, it's about 90 schools that I've determined,
Mm.
like about 70 prior to the equalization schools, the 9 equalization schools, and the 10 Rosenwald schools. So I have documentation on all of that. So if any of you have information on any of those small rural church or community schools, please feel free to contact me so that I can add it to the list. Because when the book is published, all of that information will be in there. I did an article on the midwives. That's, young people have never heard of a midwife.
Mm.
The term has been kind of modified and embellished nowadays to it's called a doula, but the doula is a lot more educated. Now, when I did the articles on the schools, I talked with Dr. Tisdale. That man is such a delight to talk to. He was able to tell me this early school he attended. He attended, I think, I forgot the name of the school right by their church. He attended Tomlinson, but he graduated from St. Mark.
Mm.
I mean, he knew the names of the teachers, the grades, the principals, everything, details. So when I did the article on midwives, I called him again. His mother is a midwife. He had her certificates, the places to which he took the training. I mean, unbelievable details. So I
Wow.
see that this man, I mean, it's just such an honorable gentleman and served in the capacity that he did and elevated Claflin University to the level that it has achieved over the years. But I'm going back to your question. Yeah, but I think that the schools are very important. Our being involved as parents, as grandparents, as community people, as church people, it is our responsibility. I think it'd be a sin and a shame if we did not share and impress this information upon our young people.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So you're saying that, and sometimes we find that to be a little challenging, I should say, because again, that's not nothing that is in our schools, right? And so
Right. We have to do it
sometimes we
ourselves.
fall by the wayside in regards to how we actually ensure that the information is getting out. But I have to ask, you put a lot of effort into the museum,
Hmm.
so I'm asking this because I want people to know, um, when you made the offer or had the offer made in regards to purchasing the museum, you took the risk, believe it or
Oh
not.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, a big risk. I mean, a risk where you could have gotten a building and you just never know, right?
Hmm.
So I want to kind of ask, what were some of your biggest challenge in creating or yet maintaining the museum?
Some of the well, initially, um, I don't even know how it survived all those years the way that we did. But initially, after I got the museum and determined, what I needed to be done, not a whole lot of renovations, take down the dry cleaners racks and clear out some of the debris and stuff from the back. But there was a gentleman who approached me after about 2 weeks there. He had a used furniture store somewhere on 52, like around St. Stephen's or something, and he wanted to close the store and needed a place to store his stuff. So I agreed to let him store it in the warehouse portion of the museum, and in exchange, he provided a gentleman to do my basic renovations. So
Hmm.
yeah, so we were bartering, So he did that and for a while. So I got it to a pleasant state, and of course did a lot of work. In fact, I see that Genevieve Burgess is on the line. In fact, Genevieve helped me to put down some tiles in one of the rooms there. So thank you, Genevieve. So, getting help from Saras and community people. So, I just feel like I had the support, but, I did a lot of work myself. I think my girlfriend Naomi, I think she was there one day. We were doing some painting, so I did get some help from some people and some volunteers. Like right now, I have, including myself, I have about five museum volunteers. There are no salaried people at the museum.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
we've operated all these years of volunteers, and those are people who have a passion for what we're doing. Those are people who have a passion for our history and want to get that information shared as well.
Yes, ma'am. Definitely want to give kudos to Miss Burgess. She's definitely been one that has find community to be
Mhm.
a great thing to support. And so I definitely, again, when we talk about women's history, here's what I mean when I say it don't have to be on a national level. We have individuals just like Miss Burgess that you just recognized that see fit to be a part of something that she know is going to be beneficial
Mhm.
to everyone, not to her. She didn't come as her. She put hands
Mhm.
in it, seeing it be a benefit to the community. So again, Miss Burgess, we want to thank you for your efforts.
Mhm.
And so that was going to be my leading question when we talk about, you talked early on about grant funding, and I wanted
Mhm.
to ask too, like, the community support. And I'm glad you mentioned, so people recognize like there's no money in regards to people that give their time currently to the museum.
Mhm.
Long term, we would love to see something that helps support this. But again,
Mhm.
as I said earlier, you got to have a heart to serve and be selfless to these things, but also be genuine, making sure that this
Mhm.
is something that you're truly doing with good intentions. And so I want to ask, when we talk about the future, what are your hopes for the museum in the future, as it continues? Here I'm speaking as it continues to expand and grow. And I want you to think about this as I continue to talk a little bit, because I want the viewers, for you all that are tuning in, to really truly feel the passion that she's put in, those that have helped so far, and where are we going? Where are we going in the future? So again, what are some of your hopes for the museum in regards to the growth and expansion?
Okay, well, at the moment, the museum is not open every day because it's the building is 100 years old. I, put forth a lot of effort to control the leaks along the way, but right now the building, it's been determined that the building needs to be stabilized and a new roof. Well, I've gotten a lot of the funds approved to do that, and as you may recall too, I got that $50,000 grant from T-Mobile. I think it was awarded back in December of 2023. I think it was. So those funds are to be used to assist with the museum. I'd like to expand the museum because they want to tear down the warehouse portion because when they put the phase one roof on, it's going to. They don't want the water. I mean, they want to detail the water such direct it in a way to go away from that portion. So that's something else. But anyway, I would love to expand in the other portion of the warehouse because I have people who are now donating their collections to the museum. So we'll need
Mm,
to archive and probably store. Yes, there's a lady in Maryland, Columbia, Maryland. This lady is the great grand. I'm sorry, let me say it right. This lady is the her husband is the great grandson, I think it is, of Thomas Day. And if you've never heard of Thomas Day, he was a black furniture maker in North Carolina. I think in the late, it might have been before, I forgot exactly when, maybe the early 1800s or so. But anyway, so I'm really impressed and pleased to get her items. I've picked up some of them from Maryland already, and we'll be picking up some more when I go up this coming weekend. But I'm pleased to know that people are providing their collections. We'll have them on her things are mainly African things. We'll have the special exhibition for that. I'd like to also expand to make it easily accessible by way of technology also. I'd like to have more technological abilities within the museum, and then I'd like to be able to share those items as well. Well, the tour guide already has a QR code, so just go to my website. But believe it or not, I think that the tour guide on the website lacked the code because this Summer uploaded it for me, but I didn't get her to go back and upload the one with the QR code. But you can still go to the website and see the tour guide. So we want to get that tour guide out there and have that available. And I've already had a lady request that her family reunion is this year, and she wants to use the tour guide coming to King Street. So I'd like to, expand in those directions, and get the entire complex renovated and completed. But what I am doing also, and I didn't get permission from the county to do it, I mean the town, expanding the King Street Historic District, and the museum will be included because it qualifies along with the other buildings on Mill Street. So there are just a bunch of other stuff, just just doing a whole bunch of stuff.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I do
So,
this 24. I do this 24/7. I'm the self-appointed
yes,
volunteer
ma'am, you do it.
historian for Williamsburg County. 24/7.
Yes, ma'am. So I know this past Thursday,
Oh yeah.
you had the Black History
Program.
celebration, which I thought was very, very nice. Outside
Okay.
of the high wind, but
Yeah.
I love the displays that you had out and just recognizing the different schools that kind of
Mhm.
made a significant impact over the years. But is there any other events or program that the museum does or will be offering that you like to share with the viewers?
Oh, yes, prepare for Juneteenth. We had a festival last year, so we
Yes,
hope to
ma'am.
expand upon that. That's Juneteenth, which is June 19th, and it falls on a Thursday. So we will be doing Juneteenth, excuse me, on the 19th on a Thursday. So please mark your calendar, and if you'd like to set up a table and share your organization's deliverables, you're welcome to do so. If you'd like to come and set up a table and sell some jewelry, you're welcome to do so. Oh, another thing we were talking about, I've been talking about with Selena across the street. I think we were thinking about maybe having a big community yard sale. We hadn't said anything yet. I guess we'll try to do it before it's too hot or a convenient time. And I'm hoping we could run it a couple of days or something. I don't know, but I'll get back with her because she was thinking about doing a pop-up shop. So that's in the works. We're considering doing that as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
Um, so thank you for sharing the events
Mhm.
or programs that you may have coming up. Because I feel like, again, the more people know is the more that they can get involved, right?
Right.
So I'm leading to now, how can
Mhm.
people, both those locally, those that may be just all over the world, how could they support the work of the museum?
Oh, okay. We certainly accept tax deductible contributions. So whatever you give will be tax deductible. And believe it or not, we are desperately in need because I'm not sure if we have enough money to complete phase one of the roof replacement. So and I have the opportunity on the website, but I don't think it works properly. So if you want to donate, then please go to the website and get our address and send it or email me. Um, I don't know if we can put it up. Is there a chat that you can put my email in? It's Cassandra.
Sure. Your
Where
email?
is Yeah, Cassandra.w.rush@aol.com. But I
Okay.
also wanted to mention that we are in the process, and I've been sending notices out to Turquoise as well. We are in the process of forming an organization of some people who have expressed a serious interest in assisting in preserving the rich culture, history, and buildings of Williamsburg County. So what
Yes,
I've
ma'am.
been doing with these people, with the people who I've been, we need to meet again soon, but I knew I was going to be horribly busy in February. So I've been sending, every time I see a grant opportunity, I've been mailing it out, emailing it to them. And so I'm trying to pull as many people in as possible to make these grant opportunities available to you. And for those of you who are not yet writing grants, to please think in terms of putting forth the effort. It can be very rewarding to do so.
Mm.
I do write grants, but I have not been trying to write for other people per se, because from the workshops I attended, one of them said it takes 40 hours to write a grant. So I need to know that when I sit there at the beginning of the week to work on a grant, I need to know that I have 5 or 6 uninterrupted hours all week to do that.
Put the time
And
into it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to concentrate. You can't be doing, some people might. I can't, I can't multitask when I'm working on a grant. So
Yes,
when
ma'am.
that week is up, then I have to go back and catch up on everything that got behind, during the week when I was working on this grant. But, please think very seriously for your organizations. If you don't have a 501(c)(3), get one. And, that makes you qualify for grants.
Yes, ma'am. So, again, you all, we are here broadcasting results with Rouse. And the one thing about this broadcast, we take a seat at the table with all.
Mhm,
And so we, from music entertainment to
mhm,
you, your personal story, to small business, big corporation, we want to be able to engage so that you'll be able to tell your story. And so tonight, we are recognizing Miss Cassandra Williams Rush as we take part into Women's History Month for her um rich history in Williamsburg County of South Carolina.
mhm.
And if you all are just tuning in, I ask that you go and look back at this live. Contact her if you have anything that you want to donate, any monetary donation, any literature in
American, yeah.
regards to our history. Please, I urge you to please get in contact with her. I promise you, this young lady she's it. I can definitely say for a number of years I've known her now, and she's definitely been
She's
read up
saying
with
young, but I'm not a young lady. I may be young at heart, young in action, but I am not a young lady. Believe you, I'm old enough to people probably your grandmother. Okay.
yes, ma'am. So Ms. Rush, when we're talking about legacy, when we talk about, this is the moment as we kind of wrap up here,
Okay.
our closing thoughts and legacy. I kind of want to ponder back to that 15, 16 little girl
Mhm.
that you grow up to be now. Not so much of a young lady, you all, but truly tell us, like, what does it mean to you personally? Um,
Mhm.
this thinking 15, 16, having being bold,
Mm.
um, brave, and
Mm.
having very, very great confidence in yourself. Personally, what does it mean to you to be a part of African American history, but yet, I mean, all of your selfless hours and contribution that you gave?
What does it mean? It really shapes my life at this point. Um, it makes me to be even prouder of my history, my people, my all my relatives there in Williamsburg County. It just means a lot to be able to be able to come back to give back. And I'm going to tell everybody my secret prayer. I have a girlfriend in Columbia, just to clear. God answers all of your prayers, and I'm trying to think, well, why would she do that? But one of my main prayers is for a healthy longevity so that I can get all this work done that I have envisioned. I keep saying, Lord, you know what I'm trying to do. You know, I'm trying to provide this information. You know, I'm trying to make it accessible to everyone, the school children, my children, my grandkids, your children, your grandkids. So please provide me the healthy time to do that. Now, I've had an exception lately. I think I told you I broke my right leg this past Saturday. So that's why all this white stuff is on my hand. But so I would tease my girlfriends. I said, they've been going to the doctor for one reason or another, going to the hospital, and I hadn't been doing any of that. So I figured, well, I got jealous of them. So I said, I'm gonna break my legs. So I can have to go to the doctor too, and have to go to the hospital. And we have something to share and
Wow.
talk about. Anyway, my passion is my people. My passion is you. You are my passion. So just know that it's just in my heart to try to do all that I can, and I tried to do it all positively too. I have no jealousies. I have nothing, but I do. My thing is be positive, be productive, and keep it moving.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. So, you kind of tie into my next question, which was going to be like, if visitors had an opportunity to walk away from the museum itself or the message of the museum. We talked early on about the mission and the
Mhm,
impact of the museum itself. Like, what would you hope that they take away from it? And again, you kind of shared, your passion, but is
mhm.
anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, what I've gathered when people have visited and left, they are pleased because they've learned something, have been exposed to some information or people or places or events in Williamsburg County that they were not at all familiar with. And in fact, I wasn't doing just Williamsburg County. When I started out, when I did for Black History Month, I did, African Americans in history. So of course I covered, all the national figures. But a lot of people, anyone who has come in, visited, and left, said they have learned something, and I think that's very important.
Yes, ma'am. It definitely is. So tell us, how can the viewers, people that maybe be traveling through, how could they definitely stay in connection with the museum, and all of your initiatives that you're working on?
Well, one would certainly be through the website, and I don't mind direct contacts. I do some posting, but I don't do as much because I have to do all my postings 100% myself, and I'm also the bookkeeper and the janitor and the curator, and just every job there is to be done. It's what I'm doing. But please just keep an eye on the website, and please don't hesitate to contact me.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm.
You all, again, we are here taking a seat at the table as we recognize Women's History Month. We've all made some impact in regards to history, but tonight I just want to pay homage again to Miss Cassandra Williams Rush. I want to thank each of you for tuning in. And so, Miss Rush, as we part ways a little bit here, is there any final thoughts or words of wisdom that you would like to share to our listeners?
Um, for sure, know that your history is important. Know that if it's not documented, it never happened, and know that I want to be the person who tell our history. We don't need any other races to try to tell our story because they're not going to tell the whole story. They're only going to tell their version, whitewashed version. So let's be mindful of that. Let's get the whole story out there. We built America. Any the Capitol, the White House in Washington D.C., the courthouse in King Street, we built that. We, the enslaved, built all of the earlier structures in this country, and I mean, we have made significant contributions. And don't let me get started on the 400 years of free labor thing too. Okay.
You all, she has a lot of stories, and as she said, don't let her get started. Don't let her get started.
The 400 years of free labor.
But I definitely just want to thank you. I like a statement you made early on is, you came back to give
Mhm,
back. And I
mhm,
want to thank you for coming back to Williamsburg County, which is your roots, but being
mhm,
willing to come back, but yet gave back. You didn't see it as, someone else thing. It was definitely a passion, excuse me, coming strictly from your heart. And I thank you
mhm.
truly for that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you again for your excuse me for your time. I'm laughing at you in my head saying, "Look, don't let me get started." But but I definitely just want to thank you for everything that you have done. Thank you for what you've shared. Thank you to our viewers that continue to tune in, broadcasting here at Results with Rouse. And anytime that any of you would like to take a seat at the table to
Mhm,
tell your story, it could be about history, it could be just about you sharing
mhm,
your story that you want the world to hear about. Sports, music, whatever it shall be, I think it's important that we take time to do so. Because again, as we're doing here tonight, it could be history that
mhm,
someone needs to know. So be mindful, as she said, to assure that your legacy, your thoughts, your ideas is truly coming from you, and don't let nobody else tell your story but you.
mhm, mhm,
Um, so as we wrap up here, I do want to remind you all of a couple of events that's coming up. She mentioned to you all again this year in June, we will have Juneteenth again at her place in King Street.
mhm,
There would also be some other Juneteenth events going on in Williamsburg County. I don't want to get a little ahead of that because I'm not sure if it's finalized, but as they finalize it, I will definitely let you know. I know Hands Up Outreach is preparing to do that's an organization that is planning to do a Juneteenth event as well. Like I say, I don't want to get too ahead of putting too much information out there, and I hope I'm not getting too much ahead. But nevertheless, as it comes out, I'll be sure to share it. But outside of that, AC Media Marketing, along with TR Development, we have a partnership with WAB Sports. And so, one of the things that I do with individuals, whether that's an individual or organization, is help them put on charity events, organizing it, coordinating it. However, we have a seat at the table, we talk about it and put it in place. And so, if any of you all would ever need those services, just reach out. The Orange and White weekend will happen in Clemson, South Carolina, August 1st through the 3rd. And that is a great opportunity for young people to come be on campus, mingle with some former players, mingle with just family and friends. You don't have to be a student of Clemson. It's just an opportunity for you to come and fellowship, but also kind of see the works that we do as we continue to partner with other organizations, because it's a passion. It's something that I love to do. And I, again, just thank God for allowing someone to see me, and ask that I come on board to help them bring their events to fruition and continue to help them expand. So again, Orange and White Weekend, Clemson, South Carolina will be August 1st through the 3rd, and then our ACC Legacy Weekend will be August 29th through the 31st in Clemson, South Carolina.
Mm.
I want to thank you all again for those that came to the first, but not last, bonfire that happened
Mm.
on the 22nd. We thank you all for you seeing fit to entrust the big city of Trial and you
Mhm.
all coming out. And so again, it was actually, as people say, should we run it back again? And we'll be back for the second year. We will be back. Last year, we did a Saddle Up event where we wanted to kind of bring the community together in a slight parade ride, just to let people see that they could mingle in a positive way and take a ride around our community. That
Mhm.
was significant for me, and yet come back and just be able to fellowship with each other. And so we're back again for the second year. And this year here, we want to be able to bring someone to our area. I feel like, Trio, people kind of pass by it and they'll miss it if they don't stop through it. But I'm here to stand that Trio is the big city. Big city Trio again, May 31st. We will have our second annual Saddle Up event. The gate was open up at 6. The event will start at 7. We're doing our first 50 tickets is online now, and I ask that you go and get them. It's only for $15 for right now, so get them while we still have it open. Because obviously, just like any other event, the prices does increase, but we definitely want to be able to provide you with an opportunity to come out and mingle in a positive way. So that's a couple of events. I'm looking back that the Hands Up Outreach, I'm hoping I'm saying that right. That organization, Juneteenth, will be June 14th at Miller's Entertainment at 3 o'clock. That's June 14th at 3 o'clock. I know it's some more details in regards to it for tickets. And again, just like the Rush Museum and this organization, they need and I say our support, for them to continue to function, for them to continue to allow us to tell our story. They need our support.
Mhm.
So whatever they may be asking, don't look at it as a selfish effort to
Mhm.
give. Look at what Miss Rush have done many years ago with her retirement, and considered a selfless effort in helping them in any way. So again, thank you again, Miss Rush, for your hard work, your dedication. Yeah, you'll tell it all. She ain't no young lady. I heard she ain't young. It is well seasoned. Let's just say it that way. But thank you again
Thank
for
you.
all your work that you've done
Thank
and
you.
doing. And I'm
Mhm.
right there with you, for
Yes, you're
anything or
just
support
supportive.
that I can give you. And
You
again,
have.
you all, I ask that you definitely tap in. If it's just a day or a weekend where we all just show up and demand her to come on down, let us, do whatever we need to do around the building. Because again, it's our history. She she
Mhm.
she provided the foundation for us. So
Mhm.
whatever we can continue to do to help that history stay rich, I ask that we pour into it. But again, Juneteenth, I think you said the 19th, was that
It's
right?
the 19th. Yeah.
The 19th for her event, and then Hands Up event is June 14th at 3 o'clock. But as they both get flyers and get their information out, I'll be able to share that with you all. But again, mark your calendars for May 31st. I say it again. The tickets are currently $15. Go ahead on Eventbrite and purchase them. If you don't have access to it, somebody you know that do, just tell them, tap in, tap in. And again, I thank you all for broadcasting here, Results with Rouse. Until next time, I want you all to know this. We have a special special live that's coming up. So I ask that you tune in. We'll drop that information out soon. So we'll have another broadcast coming up this week. We normally do it every Monday, but again, um, for me, when individuals wants to be able to take a seat
Mhm.
at the table, it's urgent to them. So I feel like it's a passion for me to be able to hear it and be able to help them share their story. So tune in that we will have another broadcast this week here, another special edition. So God bless you all. And until next time, continue to broadcast here, Results with Rouse. God bless you.